Huruf-u Mukattaa, the Quran's textual miracle. The Quran consists of 114 surahs. Of these, 29 begin with verses composed of mysterious letters whose meaning is unknown. These letters are called Huruf-u Mukattaa, meaning the disjointed or cut letters. To give an example in English, imagine placing letters like Z, Q, and X side by side. Even when written consecutively, they are pronounced individually, letter by letter, not as a single combined word. When placed together, they do not form a meaningful word. Rather, they resemble a symbol or an encrypted code. When we examine the verses formed by these letters, we see that only 14 out of the 28 Arabic letters are selected. What is even more striking is that these 14 letters are arranged in single, double, triple, quadruple, and quintuple combinations to form individual verses. For centuries, exegetes, linguists, and mathematicians have made various interpretations of these letters, yet no consensus has been reached. The main prevailing views suggest that they are keys to the surahs. They point to Allah's names and divine secrets. They form a mathematical code through their abjad, numerical values, such as the miracle of 19. They serve to draw attention and emphasis. They indicate the Quran's challenge, tahaddi, to produce something similar. They function as names or symbols of the surahs. They are expressions whose meaning is known only to Allah. They point to the system of letters and phonetics. They establish structural links between the surahs. The Quran itself refers to these letters as the signs of the book, ayat al-kitab. It uses the plural form, meaning they do not hold just one single meaning, but rather contain multiple signs and indications. Our theory aims to uncover one of these signs. In this video, we present for the first time a theory according to which the combinatorial nature of Huruf-u Mukattaa points to a deeper structure in the Quran, a structure woven from combinations of sentences and word groups distributed throughout the entire book, as if deliberately hidden within its verses. These mysterious letters seem to whisper to us, look, how with a limited number of basic units, i.e. letters, verses have been formed at the beginning of 29 surahs, using single, double, triple, quadruple, and quintuple combinations. The same logic and design principle apply to the sentences and word clusters within this divine book. In other words, throughout the Quran, certain basic sentence patterns are used as building blocks, much like the letters of Huruf-u Mukattaa. For example, sentence A and sentence B, which appear in different contexts in two separate verses, come together to form an entirely new verse, C. This combination produces a completely fresh meaning that differs from their individual uses. This is a vast linguistic Lego system hidden within the text, a combinatorial arrangement of meanings. But this combinatorial structure is not limited to rearranging sentences within individual verses. It also incorporates consecutive verses, revealing a level of order and complexity that surpasses human intellect and literary capacity. This is a powerful indication that the text could not have been written randomly or improvisationally, but rather through a highly complex, deliberate, and calculated system. When we look at literary history, scientific writings, or any human-authored work, we do not encounter an example where sentences are systematically recombined in this way, each time forming coherent and meaningful new wholes. Moreover, this structure in the Quran is not merely repetition of sentences in different places. What is truly remarkable is that sentences previously used in different contexts are brought together in a new whole, forming new relationships with one another and producing an entirely different fabric of meaning. Nor is it limited to combinations of just 3, 4, or 5 sentences. There are passages in the Quran where 10, 15, or even 30 consecutive verses come together, and in their combined state, they acquire completely new meanings, emphases, and contexts. Each component carries valuable meaning independently in its own context, yet when combined, they create an entirely new layer of meaning and depth of message. This is a characteristic of the Quran that is entirely distinct from natural human writing styles and literary traditions, something that can only be explained by divine arrangement and engineering. What makes this structure even more astonishing is that these groups of consecutive verses are constructed from sentences that also function in their original contexts elsewhere in the Quran. For instance, suppose a passage of 4 consecutive verses contains a total of 15 sentences. When we consider that each of these 15 sentences is also found independently in different places and different surahs of the book, and that these expressions have been brought together through a conscious, meticulous design to form a new whole of meaning, it becomes clear that this order could not have emerged from a random writing process. In literary history, scientific texts, or any human-made work, we do not find a single example where even 4 consecutive sentences are reused in the same way across different sections, that is, displaying a combinatorial structure. Yet the Quran demonstrates this unique and complex order across hundreds of verses without exception. This clearly reveals that the Quran is not only inimitable in terms of meaning and message, but also structurally and architecturally unique and of divine design. At this point, it is essential to ask, how is it that this combinatorial structure, which is unseen in any human-made work and which overwhelms human intellect, appears so frequently, so systematically, and so flawlessly in the Quran? This order, which surpasses human intellect and literary capacity, reaffirms once again that the Quran is an unparalleled and inimitable miracle in both content and structure. Linguistic Lego blocks and divine engineering. According to the model we propose, approximately 700 to 800 verses in the Holy Quran have been derived from a predetermined set of sentence patterns, expression groups, and semantic units, that is, building blocks, through combinations among themselves. The resulting verses were then distributed throughout the Quran as if deliberately hidden. Hurûf-u Mukattaa and its combinatorial structure serve precisely as a sign, a clue, a prototype, and a key provided to us by the author of the book to discover this vast combinatorial system of verses. These fundamental sentence patterns and expression groups function like the bricks of a building, or to use a modern analogy, like linguistic Lego pieces. Each building block is meaningful on its own. However, each time they are brought together in a different combination and a different order, they form a new message, a unique emphasis, a deeper layer of meaning, or a different context. Thus, a system emerges that produces nearly infinite diversity of meaning and depth of message from a limited number of basic units, building blocks. Just as the same bricks can be arranged in different patterns to construct countless different buildings, the Quran, with its infinite richness of meaning and layers of message derived from a limited number of basic linguistic units, clearly demonstrates its foundation in a conscious, calculated, and purposeful combinatorial design. In this context, the existence of Hurûf-u Mukattaa plays a significant role as a model of the combinatorial order in the verses and as an indicator of divine design. Just as the Hurûf-u Mukattaa consist of selected letter sequences arranged in specific combinations, the repetitions in the Quran are the result of a conscious combination of certain sentence patterns, that is, the product of combinatorial design. This clearly shows that repetitions are not a deficiency, but rather an inevitable and conscious consequence of the Quran's miraculous combinatorial structure. For those who label repetitions as a disadvantage for a divine book, the combinatorial design of the Quran serves as a complete surprise, a striking counter-argument. If one is unaware of the combinatorial structure underlying the repetitions, These repetitions may appear ordinary and tedious on the surface. However, grasping that these repetitions are the product of such a perfect design clearly reveals that the Quran contains a structure that surpasses human intelligence. Infinite diversity and a universal divine signature. This structural feature of the Quran can actually be interpreted as a manifestation and reflection on the linguistic and textual plane of the creative logic that we can observe throughout the entire universe. First analogy, the example of DNA. Our DNA has a limited alphabet consisting of only 4 different nucleotide bases: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Yet the different combinations and sequences of these 4 letters produce the immense diversity and complexity of millions of living species on Earth. Second analogy, the example of programming language. The entire digital world and all complex computer programs are essentially built with different combinations of a basic alphabet consisting solely of zeros and ones, binary code. These analogies, DNA and programming language, support the idea that the Quran similarly generates an infinite diversity and depth of meaning from a limited number of linguistic elements. They allow us to compare the text to the flexible, efficient, and productive structures found in both biological and technological systems. Thus, the Quran's structural order takes on a universal and divine signature, pointing far beyond an ordinary literary text to the infinite diversity and order seen in every realm of existence. The clever, subtle, and wisely constructed combinations of selected linguistic Lego pieces enable the Quran to create, as if from a finite number of words and expression groups, an infinite universe of meaning and depth of message. The verses of the Quran regarding the boundlessness of divine speech are in perfect harmony with this combinatorial structure and the diversity of meaning it produces. Surah Al-Kahf 18:109. Say, if the ocean were ink for the words of my Lord, the ocean would be exhausted before the words of my Lord were exhausted, even if we brought the like of it as an extension. Surah Luqman 31:27. If all the trees on earth were pens, and the sea were ink, with 7 more seas added to it, the words of Allah would not be exhausted. Indeed, Allah is Almighty, all-wise. These verses point to the boundlessness of the Quran's linguistic and semantic richness, depth, and diversity. And the combinatorial structure is like a mechanism that makes this physically and structurally possible. This miraculous structure and message call upon all Muslims and all seekers of truth to return to the essence and original message of the Quran, to reconcile once again with reason and science, and to strive to understand Allah's signs, both in the book, the Quran, and in the cosmos, the universe. By doing so, it offers humanity a brighter, more just, more peaceful, and more advanced future. A call to reflection and investigation. On this occasion, we invite scholars specialized in the field, linguists, engineers, mathematicians, software developers, and all readers intent on discovering this truth to look at the Quran with a combinatorial perspective in light of the theoretical framework and concrete examples we have presented. We invite them to examine this system in greater detail, to test it, to reflect upon it, to develop it, and to take it further. In this way, by collectively uncovering this profound and awe-inspiring order in the language and structure of the Quran, we may take a significant step toward better comprehending the divine message of the book, its wisdom, and the greatness of Allah.